There's not a boogeyman around every corner. The likelihood of you having something happen to you is relatively remote. But behavior profiling will keep you and your loved ones safer than not doing it. I'm not saying that you should be paranoid or afraid to leave your home. I'm just saying to be prudent. That's all. When we profile, if we profile based on physical characteristics like gender, race, the size of the person, their age, things of that nature, we're making ourselves less safe because we may be missing somebody who is a real threat. And if we profile the behavior, that's going to make us more safe because I don't care what the person looks like. If they're not displaying behaviors that are risky and that actually are above the baseline or below the baseline, um, they're probably not as risky as somebody who is. And this isn't universal, but you have to do what you can do. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the baseline. And I know I've talked about it before, but every person that you meet, every group of people that you enter, every location that you visit has a baseline. This park that I'm in right now has a baseline. The baseline is I feel slight wind. I can hear it. I can hear the birds in the background. I can hear seagulls and some sort of albatross, I think. Maybe some sort of pelican. I don't know. I'm not sure what the bird is. Every once in a while, I'll hear a blue heron. And that's what I expect here. I expect to see cars going around. I expect to see people walking. Expect to see people walking their dogs. What I don't expect to see is, let's say, somebody walking up here and walking around dressed as a clown. That would be something above the baseline. I don't expect to come out here and it's totally silent, meaning those birds that we can hear in the background. I'm not sure if you can or not, but um, I expect there to be those sounds. That's, if those birds were gone, that would be something that's below the baseline, something that's missing from normal. So let's say that I'm just going to give you an example here. Let's say that you enter a crowd of people. You're going to a party. Say it's a party or a cookout, a gathering, whatever. All the people there that are laughing and talking and having fun, they're all smiling. But there's one person that's maybe sitting alone that has a very serious look on his face, or a person that's moving in a purposeful manner in something that should be a social gathering. And he's quiet, he's just kind of staying to himself. Well, this person is an anomaly. He's he's not fitting the norm of that group. Now, that doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean he means ill harm. It means that he doesn't mix with the group. Now, typically, the logic center of our brain is going to try to make sense of this. And it's telling you, the guy's just had a bad day. Or he must be fighting with his girlfriend. That's not our job. Don't do that. Don't listen to that. It's going to happen. Don't listen to it. That's the logic part of your brain trying to make everything in that room copacetic and meet the baseline. But this person doesn't meet the baseline. And if you justify his behaviors that are deviating from the norm, you're just in denial. You're going to allow yourself to be in denial about somebody who could potentially mean harm. Like I said, maybe he doesn't. But he might. And you don't have to leave or do anything like that. Just be aware. Be aware of what's going on. Most of the men that I know, and I do this too, every time we walk into a restaurant or a bar, or really any room full of men, we size everybody up. Say, okay, yeah, He doesn't look like a problem. He doesn't look like a problem. He doesn't look like a problem. That guy right there might be trouble. Okay, so we're just doing that based on being males. I don't know if females do it or not, but men certainly do. I know I do. Always have. Anyway, when we walk into a room, we want to do the same thing. And we want to do that to some degree. If you see, let's say that I'm walking into that restaurant and everybody looks normal, and there's one guy that's looking around at everybody and might be doing the same thing I'm doing. I don't know. Now, let's say all of a sudden he starts adjusting things and constantly reaching for something that you can't see. Well, he might be feeling for a gun. He might be feeling for his knife. He might be just making sure that his wallet and keys are where they're supposed to be. But maybe not. And once again, he may be doing the same thing you are doing. That's okay. All you have to do is be aware of where the potential problem is. That's it. So, as you notice here, I haven't talked much about physical attributes. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories now about judging people based on physical attributes. I'm going to go back to the 80s. In the 1980s, when I spent some time at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I probably don't have to tell you the kind of people that are stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. One of my Army buddies, he was this spindly, geeky little fella. He looked like the IT geek that would come up and fix your computer and get mad at you because you use password as your password. Really, just a Pee Wee Herman type. Well, one time he and I were out, and we were heading back to base, and we had to stop at a convenience store. Now, Fayetteville, North Carolina, it's probably a very nice place now. I don't know. It wasn't a very nice place in the 80s. So this big, nasty, really tough-looking biker guy came up, and the locals in Fayetteville in particular did not like Army guys. Don't know why, don't really care why. But he started teasing my buddy, and then he flicked him in the ear. We're in the checkout line. We're just picking up some beer. He flicks him in the ear, and my buddy's like, "Yeah, can I help you with something?" And the guy's, "Nope." So he does it again, flicks him in the ear. Just one of these. And he's just kind of giggling and everything, and my buddy's like, "Well, we don't need to embarrass these people. Let's go ahead and go outside and talk about this." Well, my buddy completely destroyed this guy in probably 5-6 seconds. And, this guy, he is, if you saw him, this is the least likely person that you would think is going to be a dangerous person, that's going to be good at fighting, that's going to have this kind of violence in him. And just the violence of action that he took on this person was very, very, very complete. And then we left, and that was the end of that. We didn't really talk about it much anymore. So, as you can see, if you judged this person based on his appearance, you would never see him as a threat. But once again, he clearly was. But if you looked at his behaviors, if you profiled his behavior, you would just see a normal, happy guy that goes through his life and doesn't bother anybody, and he's no danger to anybody as long as he's not provoked. So yeah, this is one of those people that if this was a bad guy who looked all spindly and geeky like that, and you just didn't pick up on the behaviors where the guy's walking around with his hands in his pockets and seriously staring in the wrong places and doing the wrong things for the environment, that you might be neglecting your safety. And like I said, you don't have to take action on these things. You don't have to be afraid of these things. You don't have to be paranoid about it. You just have to be aware that it's there. That's important. Now I'm going to talk about another person. I'm going to put the shoe on the other foot here. When I was a child, in my neighborhood, one of the ladies that lived across the street from me, she was late 50s, early 60s. I guess I was a kid, so I don't really know. I wasn't very good at judging age at that time, but I do know that she had about a 30-year-old son. He lived a few houses down. She kept her lawn nice. She kept her house nice. She had little flower gardens out front and everything. Just your typical Aunt Bee type. Well, she would sit out on her lawn in her lawn chair with a box of honeycombs when the elementary school bus came and dropped kids off. And then the kids would come home and they'd walk home from the bus stop, and maybe some of them had to walk 300 or 400 yards. So they would walk by and she would kind of lure them over and she would talk to them. And, there was no big deal. You would think, okay, well, yeah, she's just taking care, she's watching the neighborhood kids. At least that was our thought at the time. It turns out she was recruiting these children and she was turning them over to her son in the pretense that they're going to do some work for him. And then that was it. And he was a pedophile. So I don't need to tell you where that went. But once again, if we judged her based on physical attributes, we've got a real problem, because she was a very dangerous person. Not in and of herself, but she was working with someone else who was very dangerous. But if we profile the behavior, which is luring elementary children to you with cereal, then we have a different view of this person. So that's why I'm saying we profile behaviors. We don't profile any physical characteristics whatsoever. They just don't matter. A small child can be dangerous if you've been in a war zone in a city, let's say Somalia, even Safwan, Iraq. Those children were every bit as dangerous as the grown men. And even more so because, you wouldn't want to defend yourself against a child. You wouldn't think they have to. And that, one of them might be carrying an RPG or an AK-47. They're dangerous people. And they're children. Pretty young ladies. I saw in the comments that there was a pretty young lady that came to somebody's door and knocked on their door. They opened the door for her, and in came two guys that were with her and beat the snot out of it. So once again, we're looking at behaviors. We're not looking at physical attributes. Now, you're already doing this to a large degree. If you have children or a spouse or somebody that you spend a great deal of time with, you know when something's off about them. Even if it doesn't seem like there is on the outside, maybe that person's a little bit quieter than normal. And you'll ask, what's wrong? What's going on with you? Why are you so quiet? If your car has this little tiny slightest vibration that you're not used to, maybe even before you really logically know what's going on, you're going to think about taking that car to the shop. So we already do this. You just need to incorporate this into your everyday life, and you need to kind of tell that logic center of your brain, shut up. We'll deal with the task later. And listen to your instinct. So, and I know I say that a lot. I say that in a lot of videos, and I'm probably going to keep on saying it because this is really the core of this portion of what we're doing. We're going to be doing more real self-defense stuff later on, but right now I really want to keep you away from those situations. Later on, we'll teach some very simple very basic techniques to help you deal with it if all of this fails, and then you're still in trouble and have to react, and you need to get yourself out of the situation. Okay, so everyone, let me know in the comments times when you knew something was off and still went in, and you still let it happen. You ignored your instinct, trusted your logic, which a lot of us do. Makes sense. We're logical people. Or tell me about times when you didn't ignore it, where you knew something was off and you were like, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm just going to leave and come back later. No big deal. You're not out much when you do that. And if you'd give this video a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. So that's going to be it for today, and we'll talk to you later. Stay safe out there, everyone.